Hello everyone. In this video we're going to cover a few things. We're going to cover duplicate special, which is mirroring your object. We're going to cover center pivot, smoothing an object, and that's about it. So we're going to start a new model, and like always we are going to start by importing an image plane. So from here, as a reminder, you click on this, I call it the little Polaroid picture kind of thing coming out. Insert image plane. You're going to locate. Let's see if I can just rename this really quickly. Okay. And for this demonstration, this is all I need. I just need the shield here. I don't need it in the side view. I'm going to just sort of imply the depth of what I think it is. So when I start a model like this, there's tons of different things we can do here to go ahead and get this started. You have complete freedom to model it however you'd like, but I do want the topology to be nice by the time it's done. So first thing I'll start with, I guess I'll start with a cube. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and scale this. And I'm going to do X-ray and wireframe on shaded. The next thing I'm going to do is, I'm just like our previous models, I'm going to start by adding some geometry in here. And it's got to be an even number. So I think this is probably a pretty good start here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I was going to talk about, I can also show you symmetry, but try not to rely on that too heavily because it can get confusing. But since I'm showing you how to duplicate special, I should show you how to symmetry using that tool. So holding shift and right click does not bring that up. You have to hold control plus shift, hold control plus shift, hold right click, go to symmetry, and then symmetry. Now you'll notice they highlight blue, and that's when they're symmetrical. When it's red, it doesn't have anything that's symmetrical. If you'll notice here symmetrical, here it's not. So I'm going to start just by sort of with my symmetry on. I'm going to start doing it this way. Okay. And over here, just go ahead and place these into place, sort of match my reference, and there's that. Now as far as the rest of the object, let's go ahead and bring this just a little bit more over. Now as far as the rest of the object, in order to create some of this symmetry that or not symmetry in this case, this outer line here, this sort of bevel here you see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my symmetry, hold control shift, and I'm going to turn off my symmetry, and I'm going to start to do this model here by extruding. And I'm going to go in my XYZ, and I'm going to scale these to be 0.95, 0.95, 0.95. How's that? That's pretty good. I could even go 0.97. I'm just being a little bit particular, and that's pretty close. So I'm going to go with 0.97. Now you'll notice now I've created the geometry that I need, which is this edge loop here that runs around. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit extrude again and pull it out a little bit. And now you'll see I have the start of that. I'm also going to do this one more time by extruding inward again. And I'm going to do it here. And I'm going to match it as close as I can to this here size. And I'm going to have to go back and vertex. And here I'm going to turn back on symmetry, control, hold shift, right click, symmetry. There we go. And I'm just going to start pushing and pulling these vertices to match. And I'm only matching it obviously on the one side because that's all I really need it for. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'll go back into my face mode. I'm going to extrude these in one more time. I'm going to do it to scale X, Y, Z. And what I'm doing is I'm highlighting these here and then just middle mouse button click. And that seems pretty close. 0.9. We do 0.95, 0.95, and 0.95. Now, again, I can take this now here, and I can extrude them out. Oop. Why is it doing that? There we go. We'll extrude that out right about there. And I'm going to just test it in smooth mode to see what it's starting to look like. And you're starting to see that I got the topology I need in order for this to start resembling some of the main key features of this particular shield. Okay, so another thing I want to do is I want to scale it in, and in order for this to start to get that push-pull value that I want to do, I want to show you something called the soft select tool. Tapping B turns on your soft select tool, and if you hold B and middle mouse button, you should be able to toggle the size of the brush. In this case, I'm going to bring it out to, like, let's say about here, and that's toggling on off with my brush tool is B. And the other thing is you have to make sure you have a tool selected, like the move tool. If you just have a vertice selected without the move tool or any other type of tool activated, it will not recognize it. So go ahead and highlight an edge loop. I'm highlighting an edge loop. I could do this by edges too. I could do edges, turn on my brush tool, it'll do the same thing, and I'm going to just start to pull this out a little bit to give it that sort of crease, if you will, that we're trying to get by. I'm going to pull it back a little bit here. That I sort of picture this shield having. And I'm going to pull it off the wall or the image plane just a bit, just a touch, and I'm going to check it in smooth mode, and it sort of has that rounded out feature that we're going for. Now, some other things, we'll get into texturing because we're not going to model in this eagle, if you will. What we're going to do is I'm going to highlight a bunch of edges here to create some bevels. And I can do this one, this one. Sometimes when you try to bevel too many edges at once, it will glitch out and not work right. So it's always good to make sure. But I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. I'm going to go bevel edge, and I'm going to set my segments. Ooh. Let's do it in here. 3 and fraction 0.5 maybe. I just want it to be sort of, or maybe 2 segments. 2 segments should work. And let's go 0.3, and I'm just going for that here. And let me check the inside, and it looked like it worked just fine. I'm gonna check over here, and I'm keeping it pretty tight, close to each edge, if you will, so that I get the hard crease that I want. If you see that hard crease now coming around. Now, when we get to the eagle, we're going to just model that in. Or, excuse me, we're not going to model in. We're going to texture it in. As for the bolts here, we could put those in as a model. We could sort of go into here. We could extrude each one of these sections in and sort of pull that outward. But before I do that, actually, I want to go ahead and I want to create geometry. I'm going to hold Shift, right click, add divisions to faces. Try that one. That wasn't the right one, so I'm going to go to my V. Instead of my U, I'm going to go to V, and that should create the edge loop that I need right here. Now, why did I do that? The reason I did that is because here I'm going to do the same thing on this face. I still have symmetry on. Add divisions to faces. Let's just see what happens. And that was the wrong add divisions to faces, so I just undid that, and it's under my U and apply. And now I have a little bit extra geometry here that I can use. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding in geometry where needed in order to model in these bolts. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to highlight these faces here. I'm going to extrude these in. Ooh. Now, excuse me, that didn't work because I still have symmetry on. I had forgotten to mention that. And this is the perfect place to show you duplicate special here in just a moment. What I'm going to do is, just for sake of this model, I'm going to duplicate it and shift it over. And here on this mesh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete half of it. So I just hit Control D to duplicate this and just slide it over. And I'm going to create layer from selected, shield 1. So that's what it looks like whole so far. While modeling in these bolts, we could do them as separate object, combine it, sort of build them into the mesh that way, like we were adding objects previously. This style is sort of, I'm just going to show you how to model as we go along and just add directly to the model. So on this particular shield here, I'm going to delete half of it, and I got to turn off symmetry. Okay, delete, delete. And I want you to do the same thing because this is really important. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special, and I'm going to hit this little square for my settings. Instead of copy, we're going to do geometry type instance. Parent should be fine. And under scale, it should be -1 on X. And then we're going to go ahead and hit apply. What we just did is we created an exact instance of this object. So let me go ahead and show you. I'm going to grab these, and you'll notice that it moves on both sides. So this is, instead of using symmetry, this is called duplicate special. Now they are still separate objects, and we'll combine them at the end. But for now, we have two separate objects. But they act as if they are the same one, and they symmetry because it's -1. It's flipped on a -1 scale. So we'll get to that. You'll notice in here, it says scale x -4.9 because we didn't freeze out the transformations, but had we done that, it would be, this is scale 4.9, so we flipped it on -1. Now, getting back into this, I'm going to select these faces, and I'm going to extrude inward on XYZ, and then I'm going to simply just sort of do that. Now, with that being said, now I can go ahead and create this shape of the bolt. Like so. And we're going to extrude. Outward. Okay. And now we've created one of our bolts on our shield. Again, we're going to sort of do this. Whoops. Like so. Oop. Make sure I have all of my correct edges selected, and I'm going to do bevel edge again. Oop. Undo that because I have one of these faces selected, or edges that I did not want selected, and I'd say that's pretty good. I'm going to press 3 and see what it looks like, and that's the start of our shield here. Okay, so there's one of the bolts that we just sort of modeled in. Now I'm going to go to the next one. Here, we're going to need this here, this face here across. We need to add divisions. So the other way, if you remember, we can just use the multi-cut tool and sort of cut in. I can do one about here, and I really might need one over here too. So simply just cutting directly into the mesh. I was holding control before I clicked to make sure it did the entire proper edge loop, and now I've got my geometry that I need for this one. Extrude inward. I'm highlighting all these, middle mouse button click, and then I'm going to slide into place, zoom in, and I'm going to go to my vertice and start to give this the shape it needs. Get this one, and I believe this one. Getting a little lost here, make sure I have the right one. I need this one. And let's go in here, check it really quickly. And I'm just lining these up to fit. And this one comes up too. And you're seeing something happening here, so I'm just going to go drag that up and fix that. Okay, now this looks a little offset. Where's this one going? This one needs to come over. And I can slide this one over also. And this is just eyeballing. It really would be a better way to do these bolts, not by modeling them in this way. I just wanted to show you a different way to do it. It might be more complicated for you, it might not, but it's definitely good to know how to do. And to bring that down. Now we're going to select the faces. Oop, I already had them selected. I'm going to extrude out. And I could scale these in. and then rotate around, something like that. Highlight these edges. Oop. And then these ones. And we're going to bevel these also. Oop. All right. Now, press 3, see what it looks like. Now I've got, you'll see I got some pinching in here happening. An easy way to fix that is sort of just grab some of these verts surrounding and just average vertice. And that's a good way to start to sort of clean up some of those pinching regions. Should help a little bit. This model doesn't need to be perfect also. Don't worry about the perfection of it. Just close. And you'll see over here on this mesh, it automatically created it for me. So now I only have to, with my models, I only have to model half of it instead of modeling the whole thing, which is great. It's a time saver. It helps us out a lot. So I'm going to add another piece of geometry in here. And do this again. And we're just going to extrude. Oh, and let's go back into one mode. And we're just moving this around to fit. Okay. Bring it over. Okay, and then I grab these faces, extrude out like I did before. I'm going to switch to perspective mode. And as you noticed, I've just been sort of eyeballing all these extrudes. Oop. And that'll work. Oh, no it won't. There we go. Again, I'm going to just go ahead and go in here and bevel edge. Check it in smooth mode. And there we go. Now I've got some of these all being built from the same object. Well, half of it anyway. How many more bolts do we have? I've got this one. I'm going to add an edge loop right through here. I'm going to cut right through. And I don't know if that worked or not. I'm going to go back and double check. Let's see. Go in here. I need it right. Oop. Yeah, there's a chance I got it in the wrong spot. Right there. Okay. Go back into one mode. Select my faces that I need. Extrude inward. Vertex. Down here. Bring this over and bring this over and down. I could probably bring this a little bit down and over. And this one could come down a little bit and over. And let's bring the center down. And we can go ahead and select those faces, extrude out. Select the edges. Bevel edge. Okay, and then how many more? I hope it's only one more. Technically two. Okay, and the last one, actually, I'll add that one last, but I'm going to combine these objects first. So let's see what we got here for faces. I'm going to need an extra piece of geometry cut through here. And you'll see from our previous lab, actually, you'll see that these add up a lot. Look at all these things we've done to this one mesh already. Now, I'm going to go ahead back into my face mode. And I'm going to bring these in. XYZ, middle mouse button and inward. And that's pretty good. And then just sort of move these vertices into place. And let's see. Do I have another one? This one. And bring that over. Bring this down. And I'm just sort of mushing this into place. I'd say that's pretty good. And one more. Let's bring this one a little bit over. Okay. Now I'm going to extrude these. And just go ahead and drag that out. Oop. Select my edges, bevel them. Okay, and then that means I only should have one more down here in the center, and I'm going to do that one by after combining these objects to make one solid object. Now, even after I combine these objects, we're going to go mesh, combine. I still need to merge the vertices together because if I press 3, it's not a closed object still, and there's this hard pinch. So what I need to do is I'm going to go in my front view. It makes it a lot easier to select. I'm going to go to vertex, and I'm just going to highlight these vertices here all in the center. Then I'm going to hold shift, right click, merge vertices, and I'm going to do the settings, merge vertices, and I'm going to change this to 0.001 and hit apply. And the reason I did that is that threshold, if it's too large, let's see how it worked, will combine all of these vertices over here. So like these three, if the threshold's not small enough in this region, it will combine them all into one vert, and you'll lose all of those bevel edges. You could always save the bevels for last. I just did it because I was just sort of in a mood, I guess, but to do it. Anyway, so now that I've got that all set, I'm going to hold shift one more time on object, and I'm going to double check to make sure Yeah, and there's no hard pinch in the middle. That's how I know that it's one solid object. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to hold Shift, right click, I'm going to go to Soft Edge, Soften Edge, and now your object should be a lot softer. Some of these other regions where we have these sort of weird pinching spots, if you mess with the topology enough, it will certainly. I'm going to try this. I'm going to just do average verts. Try that. Oh, but before I do that, since I don't have this on duplicate special anymore, I want to turn on symmetry. With symmetry, make sure your arrow's selected. Hold Control Shift, Symmetry, Symmetry, and I'm going to go ahead and you'll see that these are all symmetrical because there's literally just have been. I'm going to average verts, and I'm just going to keep doing that for a minute. And I'm even going to take this one and bring up, and I should start to lose some of that pinch. Take these maybe and try that one more time. And I start to lose it a little bit. And same thing here. Oop, vertex. I'm just sort of highlighting a couple of these. And then same thing here, I'll do these three. And they're just average verts. And that should start to, whoops, get rid of some of that pinching. Anyway, so those are our bolts. I still have one more to do down here. And I'm going to turn symmetry off. I'm going to make sure I have these selected. I'm going to put it back into one mode, and I'm going to extrude. And I'm going to select my XYZ and just extrude it down. And this one I'm just going to eyeball. And I can turn symmetry back on, or I can just select both of them and sort of do it my own way. Another way you can do sort of symmetrical movements is scaling. It's a really nifty trick. There's tons of different ways to do things in this program. That's one of them as far as doing things symmetrical. And I say that's a decent enough oval for my shape. And I'm going to switch my view and drag this out and do the bolts, the bevels on the bolt. Okay, bevel edge. Now, my shield mesh is done. We're not worried about the eagle in the center. That will be something we add in a texture later. But for now, this is pretty good. So you could do whatever you want to the back. I'm just going to leave it as is. I think that's fine. In our room that we're building, this will be something like a wall decoration or even a prop that's on the side next to sort of like some weaponry or something. And from here, I've got my shield. So one of the things I want to do, because it does take up memory, and it can sort of slow down your system. I'm going to delete all by type and do history. You'll notice that all exit out. Another thing I want to show you is modify center pivot. That centers the pivot. Another thing you can do is holding D. You can just change the pivot point and so on and so forth, but I'm just going to leave it where it is. And that's our shield. So we've covered duplicate special, we've covered symmetry, center pivot, and we've done smooth mode. 3 is smooth mode again, in case you forgot. But the reason it's so important to have proper topology, I'm going to show you right now. When modeling something, we can run what is called a smooth mode. So if I hold Shift, right click, and do smooth, you'll notice the whole thing smooths out, and it adds a bunch of geometry. If I select off, you'll notice now it's not in smooth mode. If you try to press 3, let's see if my computer can do it. It does, but you'll see it smooths out just a little bit more. But this is another way to do that. Now, for texturing purposes and just the ease of doing it, I want to undo that. We will smooth again after we texture. So I'm going to go back and just undo until it's at this point. You can always, if you like, keep an extra copy if you want to keep the smooth mode on. See what it looks like in comparison. This is 1 and this is a subdivision 2. Without proper topology, this will not turn out right. It will turn out very, very bad. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to delete that one, and you can see the difference there. Now that is our shield, and I think I covered everything I want to on this particular lab. So now we've got 2 props. We've got our shield and we have our sword. Save this file, turn it in, and what I'm looking for is that the model is symmetrical on both sides. So when I enter face mode, or vertice or anything, it will select, or if I go to vertex, you'll see I can do it. It is exactly symmetrical. So the shield, these blue dots should appear both sides exactly where I hover over. Okay, so that's everything on this particular lab, and that's our shield, and we're going to get into texturing here soon. Make sure you keep these files, and we're going to come back to them, open them up, and we're going to texture them later in class as the semester goes on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this lab. It was a different style of modeling. It's not as clean as I'm trying to eyeball these, unless that's the art direction you're going for. In a particular case, I would have modeled this similar to how we modeled our sword, where I would have had each one of these cylindrical shapes as a separate object. But I wanted to show you a new way to sort of, maybe you can expand this style and expand it to your own set of unique skills and improve your style of modeling. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lab, and stay tuned for our next lab. Thanks for watching.